So, Sonic Prime. I don't think it needs that much of an introduction, but in case you've been living under a rock for at least a few decades now, let me tell you everything. Sonic Prime is a 3D animated show that released on Netflix that focuses on Sonic traveling across the multiverse, or as it's actually called in the show, Shatterverse, and he must collect several shards to form a crystal and bring back his original home. When Sonic fans look at this show, there are two sides. One side that goes onto Twitter and complains about how childish Sonic acts when they should remember that this show is going to literally explain how Sonic becomes more mature, while the other side is much more calmer, making videos of what they personally think of the show and making tons of theory videos about the show. But besides of what the Sonic community has to say about Sonic Prime, let's actually talk about Sonic Prime itself. Sonic Prime was a pretty big hit, to the point where it even made it on number 1 in the trending section of Netflix. And you know, with a banger like that, they had to make more seasons. But not only make more seasons, but make tons of money out of it. How? By making merchandise. It's the generic Sonic trope. If you have a pretty big thing coming out or already released, then you get to work by starting to make plushies, collaborations, toy sets for babies, which is kind of odd, but the most important thing about every single Sonic merchandise are the action figures, and Sonic Prime is no stranger to this kind of movement. They introduce plushies, toy sets for babies, and obviously action figures. But what makes these action figures so unique is that they're 5-inch figures. Now you're probably thinking this: oh, they're just gonna grab the mainline set and just recolor it, add some Sonic Prime accessories and call it a day. When you're actually completely wrong. These 5-inch figures have new sculpts, more articulation in places you wouldn't even expect on a Jakks Pacific figures, and tons of crazy details. Out of every single Sonic project that Jakks Pacific has ever made toys for, Sonic Prime pretty much deserves the throne for these figures. And surprisingly enough, to my knowledge, they've made at least 3 waves for Sonic Prime action figures. And since Wave 4 is coming out, I thought, hey, maybe it'd be cool if I made some concepts for what a Wave 4 could possibly be. So, hey everybody, editor SC Terracon here. Just found out that they officially announced the Wave 4 while I was editing this video. Wow, thanks a lot, Jakks Pacific. Thanks a lot. So join me on this trip as we look at the concept figures I've made for what a possible Wave 4 would look like for Sonic Prime. Before we even start drawing concepts of what a Wave 4 could look like, we need to exclude some characters that have already been turned into figures. Starting off with Wave 1, we can already exclude New York Sonic, Mr. Dr. Eggman, yes that's actually what he's called, 9, and Thorn Rose. I will admit, Wave 1 is a pretty good lineup of Sonic figures for Sonic Prime, but the thing that stops it from being the best is the fact that its colors can be very saturated, while others can be very grayish, which kinda ruins the whole figure for me. But other than that, it's great. I love it. Now moving on to the next characters that we have to exclude from drawing. Starting off with Shadow, Boss Gauge Sonic, Rusty Rose, and Gnarly Knuckles. Now this wave of Sonic Prime figures is probably one of the best. The colors are on point. There aren't as much saturation that there was in the last wave. They look as accurate to the show as possible. My goodness, this is literally chef's kiss right here. But moving on to the next and last characters that we'll have to exclude from drawing, we'll have to eliminate Grim Sonic, Black Rose, Chaos Sonic, and Dr. Deep. This third wave of Sonic Prime figures was pretty good, though I have seen a few complaints talking about how some of the characters can easily break. I think quality-wise, it looks really good, and it continues that beautiful path of staying accurate to the show as possible, just like in Wave 2. And now that we've finally eliminated the characters that we won't be drawing, let's talk about what the idea of a Wave 4 can actually be. For starters, by the time I'm making this video, Sonic Prime Season 3 is releasing incredibly soon onto Netflix. So we can base some of the figures we have here off of what Season 3 has in store for us. And for the other portion, I had the idea of basing it off of No Place, since, you know, No Place doesn't get too much merchandise. So there, we have an idea, but what will these figures look like? That's where the concepts come in now. Starting off with No Place Sonic. Now I tried my best to make this figure look as accurate as possible to the one in Sonic Prime, but it's a little bit difficult trying to base something exactly off of what came from the show. I made sure the shoes were as accurate as possible, the color schemes as well. Proportions, I had to make a few adjustments in order to, well, actually make it look like it's suitable to become a figure. This is one of my favorite Sonic figure concepts I've made in a while, because of how well it looks. The others, yes, I love them as much, but this one, wow, I love it. Now moving on to the next No Place character, we have Sails here. Now with Sails, I made sure, yet again, color schemes were on point. The figure was, well, actually suitable to be a figure, and you're probably wondering, how will the robotic hand even work on this figure? If you remember well, 9 had a figure, obviously, and his tails, his robotic tails to be exact, were very, very articulated. That is the same idea I had with Sails here. It would also be as articulated as the 9 figure's tails. So yeah, there you go. Now that we finished with the No Place characters, let's move on to the next 3 characters that are based off Season 3's newest characters. Starting off with one of the okay designs that I made, let's hear it for Grim Knuckles. Now with Grim Knuckles, I'm kind of on the side with this one. Like the color palettes on this guy are a little bit funky since we don't have much footage by the time I'm making this video. And also, I don't know, but his design is extremely weird. Like, how are you going to call this guy Knuckles if he doesn't have any knuckles? I will admit, he looks pretty cool, but at the same time, I feel like there could have been a few changes with him that would have made him look a bit more appealing and, actually make him look like a mechanized Knuckles. But other than that, I think this design does pretty well. I made sure that the limbs were a bit more thicker so that, it's not too skinny to the point where the figure just falls. So, yeah, I think I did a pretty good job with this one. And now moving on to one of my favorite Grim robots, Grim Amy. Now with Grim Amy here, I had a lot of fun with this design, okay? This design was probably one of my favorite ones out of all 3 of them, simply because of the color palettes, the way she looks, everything about her looks perfect in this design. And I think I cooked with this one, okay? I think this is probably the best Grim robot design I've made yet. The next one is going to be a little but I think this one I did good color palettes, lengthwise on all the limbs, and everything else just looks perfect on this design. And finally, here is Grim Rouge. Now with Grim Rouge, you can see, yet again, color palettes are completely different because, I don't have a clear shot of what these characters even fully look like. I also did make sure to add her wings because, well, she has wings in the trailers. And my idea for the wings is that you can move them around and you can even remove it. Just like with the movie Tails figure from Sonic Movie 2. I also made sure to make her limbs a bit more thicker so she can actually stand and not flop down like a fish. And I feel like there could be a few changes with the design, especially like the torso, maybe the limbs a bit. But other than that, I think I did decent with this one, I'll admit. They're just decent. But that pretty much is the end of today's video. Thank you guys so much for supporting me last year. Let's try and make 2024 another banger for us. Please like and subscribe to support the channel and to see more content like this. Also, go subscribe to my second channel, SC Terracon Live, because we will be live streaming a whole lot more than we did last year. So, yeah, please go subscribe to the second channel. But other than that, thank you guys for watching. Take care, and I'll see you guys next time. Adios.